The fall of the Qin Dynasty. The rise of Qin Shi Huang and Liu Bang. Part 1. A land united by iron, destined to be broken by fire. Opening hook. Imagine living in a world where a single word against the emperor could cost not only your life, but the lives of your entire family. Imagine watching thousands of workers disappear into endless construction projects, never to return. Imagine hearing that scholars who dared to criticize the government were buried alive, while priceless books were burned until the wisdom of generations turned into ashes. Yet this same emperor also ended centuries of war, united an enormous civilization, built roads that stretched across mountains, and laid the foundation for one of the greatest nations in history. Was he a monster? Or was he the visionary China desperately needed? At almost the exact moment this mighty empire reached the peak of its power, a poor farmer was quietly growing up in a small village. He possessed no noble blood, no legendary military training, and no powerful family. Few could have imagined that this ordinary man would one day overthrow the greatest empire on earth. This is the incredible story of two men whose lives never truly crossed, yet whose destinies shaped each other forever. One built the empire. The other inherited its ruins. One ruled through fear. The other ruled through trust. This is the story of Qin Shi Huang and Liu Bang. Chapter 1. China before the empire. More than 2,000 years ago, China was not a single nation. Instead, it was divided into dozens of kingdoms, each ruled by ambitious kings who constantly dreamed of conquering their neighbors. This period became known as the Warring States era. For over 2 centuries, battlefields stretched across the land. Cities rose and fell. Alliances formed only to collapse months later. Farmers abandoned their fields to become soldiers. Children grew up hearing the sounds of war instead of birds. Entire generations knew nothing but conflict. Every kingdom believed it deserved to unite China. Every king believed heaven had chosen him. Among these competing states, one stood apart. The Western Kingdom of Qin was once considered backward by its rivals. Its people lived closer to the frontier, constantly defending themselves against invading tribes. While other kingdoms celebrated elegant culture and philosophy, Qin focused on discipline. Its rulers rewarded military achievements instead of noble birth. Generals earned power through victory. Officials rose because of talent. The state valued results above tradition. This philosophy transformed Qin into an unstoppable machine. Over decades, its armies became larger, stronger, and more organized than any rival. One by one, neighboring kingdoms began to fall. Then, in 259 BC, a boy was born. His name was Ying. No one could have guessed that he would become the first emperor in Chinese history. Chapter 2. The boy who would become emperor. Ying's childhood was anything but peaceful. His father spent years as a political hostage in another kingdom. His mother became the center of endless court rumors. Even before he could understand politics, betrayal surrounded him. When his father unexpectedly became king, the young prince suddenly found himself next in line for the throne. At only 13 years old, Ying inherited the kingdom of Qin. Of course, a child could not truly rule. Power rested in the hands of experienced ministers and ambitious nobles. Some remained loyal. Others secretly planned to control the young king. One of the most dangerous men was Liu Bang, a wealthy merchant who had helped place Ying's father on the throne. For years, Liu acted as regent, effectively governing the kingdom. Many believed he expected to remain the true ruler forever. But Ying had other ideas. As he grew older, he carefully observed every official, every alliance, and every hidden ambition inside his court. He learned that power was never freely given. It had to be taken. By his early 20s, he had eliminated political rivals, removed corrupt ministers, and seized complete authority. The boy had become a king. But becoming king was only the beginning. His dream was far greater. He would unite all of China. Chapter 3. Conquering the Warring States. The campaign to unite China would become one of history's greatest military achievements. It did not happen overnight. It required decades of planning. Qin generals developed sophisticated logistics. Roads were built specifically to move armies faster than their enemies. Weapons were manufactured on an unprecedented scale. Strict laws ensured discipline. Every soldier understood his duty. Every commander answered directly to the king. One after another, rival kingdoms collapsed. Han fell first, then Zhao. Wei soon followed. Chu, despite its enormous size, could not withstand Qin's relentless military machine. Yan and Qi became the final victims. By 221 BC, after centuries of bloodshed, the impossible had happened. China stood united under one ruler. For the first time in history, Ying Zheng rejected the old title of king. Instead, he created a new title, Huangdi, emperor. He became Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor. No ruler before him had possessed such authority. No ruler before him had governed such a vast territory. His achievement changed Chinese civilization forever. Yet victory on the battlefield proved easier than ruling an empire. Chapter 4. Building an empire. Qin Shi Huang immediately began reshaping every aspect of Chinese society. Different kingdoms had previously used different currencies. He introduced a single standardized coin. Different regions had different writing systems. He standardized Chinese characters. Different kingdoms measured distance differently. He created uniform weights and measures. Different roads varied in width. He ordered standardized road construction across the empire. Merchants could now travel farther. Trade expanded. Communication improved. Government became more efficient than ever before. Massive highways connected distant provinces. Canals improved transportation. The empire functioned like a single living organism. Many of these reforms survived long after the Qin dynasty itself disappeared. Even today, historians recognize that modern China owes much of its national identity to Qin Shi Huang's vision. Yet greatness often carries a terrible price. The emperor demanded absolute obedience. Those who questioned him faced severe punishment. Entire families could be executed for crimes committed by one person. Fear became another tool of government. And nowhere was that fear more visible than in the emperor's greatest construction projects. Hundreds of thousands of workers labored under brutal conditions. Some built palaces. Others carved roads through mountains. Many helped construct what would later become sections of the Great Wall. Countless laborers died from exhaustion, disease, or starvation. To ordinary people, the empire looked magnificent. But beneath its shining surface lay unimaginable suffering. The foundation of greatness had been built with blood. Chapter 5. The Emperor Who Sought Eternal Life. Although Qin Shi Huang had conquered every kingdom beneath heaven, there remained one enemy he could never defeat: time. As the years passed, the emperor became increasingly obsessed with death. He had witnessed countless assassinations throughout his life. He knew that every king before him had eventually died. But Qin Shi Huang refused to believe that the ruler who had united China should suffer the same fate as ordinary men. Instead, he became convinced that somewhere beyond the mountains and seas existed the secret of immortality. Ancient legends spoke of mysterious islands hidden in the Eastern Ocean. These islands, it was said, were home to immortal beings who possessed magical herbs capable of granting eternal life. The emperor spared no expense. He dispatched enormous expeditions filled with scholars, sailors, physicians, and servants. One famous expedition was led by Xu Fu, a court alchemist who promised to find the legendary islands. Hundreds of young boys and girls sailed into the unknown, carrying precious gifts intended for the immortals. But they never returned. Some legends claim that Xu Fu eventually reached Japan and established a new settlement there. Whether that story is true remains uncertain. What is certain is that Qin Shi Huang never received the elixir he desperately desired. His obsession only grew stronger. Court alchemists experimented with strange medicines made from rare minerals and mysterious substances. Ironically, many of these so-called elixirs of life contained mercury. Modern historians believe these poisonous mixtures may actually have accelerated the emperor's death. The man who dreamed of living forever was unknowingly consuming the very poison that would destroy him. Meanwhile, across the empire, ordinary people paid the price for their rulers' endless ambitions. Taxes continued to rise. Labor demands became even harsher. The empire appeared powerful. Yet beneath its magnificent surface, discontent was quietly spreading. Chapter 6. Burning books and burying scholars. To Qin Shi Huang, unity required more than military victory. It required control over people's thoughts. Many Confucian scholars openly criticized the emperor. They argued that ancient traditions should guide government rather than harsh legalist laws. To the emperor, such criticism was dangerous. ideas could become rebellion. Rebellion could destroy everything he had built. In 213 BC, he ordered one of the most controversial acts in Chinese history. Books that discussed philosophy, history, and politics, except those approved by the state, were gathered and burned. Only works related to medicine, agriculture, and practical sciences were largely spared. The goal was clear. If people forgot the past, they would have nothing against which to compare the present. 1 year later, according to traditional historical accounts, hundreds of scholars who opposed imperial policies were arrested. Many were reportedly executed. Later generations described the event as the burning of books and burying of scholars. Although modern historians continue to debate exactly what happened, there is little doubt that Qin Shi Huang ruled with absolute intolerance toward political opposition. Fear became an instrument of government. Officials feared making mistakes. Citizens feared speaking freely. Even close advisors hesitated before offering honest opinions. For a time, this strategy seemed successful. The empire remained stable. No rival kingdom threatened Qin authority. Yet beneath the silence, anger continued to grow, like dry grass waiting for a single spark. Chapter 7. The Death of the First Emperor. In 210 BC, Qin Shi Huang began another inspection tour across his vast empire. He believed that by personally visiting distant provinces, he could strengthen imperial authority. During the journey, however, the emperor became seriously ill. Only a handful of trusted officials knew the truth. The most powerful among them was Zhao Gao, an ambitious court eunuch. Alongside Prime Minister Li Si, Zhao Gao realized that the emperor's death could plunge the empire into chaos. When Qin Shi Huang finally died inside his traveling carriage, they made an astonishing decision. They kept his death a secret. For weeks, the imperial procession continued exactly as before. Orders were issued in the emperor's name. Meals were delivered to his empty carriage. To hide the smell of the decaying body during the hot summer, carts filled with salted fish traveled alongside the emperor's carriage. The foul odor of the fish concealed the smell of death. It was one of the strangest cover-ups in history. Meanwhile, Zhao Gao forged imperial documents. The rightful heir, Crown Prince Fusu, received a false order commanding him to commit suicide. Loyal to his father's authority, Fusu obeyed without question. With the legitimate successor eliminated, Zhao Gao placed the emperor's younger son, Hu He, upon the throne. He became Qin Shi, the second emperor. Unlike his father, he lacked both political wisdom and military ability. Real power now belonged to Zhao Gao. The empire had lost the one man capable of holding it together. Its collapse had already begun. Chapter 8. The Collapse of the Qin Dynasty. Only months after Qin Shi Huang's death, disaster struck. Heavy rains delayed a group of soldiers traveling to their assigned post. According to Qin law, arriving late, even because of natural disasters, was punishable by death. The soldiers faced an impossible choice: obey the law and die, or rebel. They chose rebellion. Led by Chen Sheng and Wu Guang, this small uprising quickly inspired countless others across China: peasants, former nobles, disgruntled soldiers, local leaders. Everyone who had suffered under Qin rule now saw an opportunity. The empire that had taken decades to build began falling apart within months. Government officials abandoned their positions. Entire provinces declared independence. Armies switched sides. Among the many leaders who emerged during this chaos were two men whose names would become legendary. One was Xiang Yu, an aristocratic warrior of extraordinary strength and courage. The other was Liu Bang. Unlike Xiang Yu, Liu Bang came from almost nothing. No noble family, no military academy, no royal blood. Yet history often favors those whom no one expects. Chapter 9. The ordinary man named Liu Bang. Long before he became emperor, Liu Bang was simply another commoner. He was born around 256 BC in Pei County. His family were ordinary farmers. Unlike many future rulers, Liu Bang showed little interest in farming. He preferred wandering through markets, talking with travelers, and making friends wherever he went. His father often considered him lazy and irresponsible. Compared with his hard-working brothers, Liu Bang appeared unlikely to accomplish anything meaningful. Yet people naturally liked him. He laughed easily. He listened more than he spoke. He treated rich and poor with surprising equality. Eventually, Liu Bang became a minor local official responsible for escorting prisoners and performing small administrative duties. It was hardly an impressive position, but it allowed him to understand ordinary people's struggles. One famous story tells how Liu Bang was assigned to escort prisoners to forced labor. Along the journey, several prisoners escaped. Under Qin law, Liu Bang himself could face execution for failing his duty. Rather than continue a hopeless mission, he made a remarkable decision. He released the remaining prisoners. "You are free," he reportedly told them. Some immediately fled into the mountains. Others chose to remain beside him, not because they were forced, but because they respected the man who had shown them mercy. Without realizing it, Liu Bang had demonstrated the leadership style that would one day change history. Where Qin Shi Huang inspired obedience through fear, Liu Bang inspired loyalty through trust. As rebellion spread across China, this humble county official would soon step onto the stage of history. The empire built by the first emperor was collapsing, and from its ashes, a new leader was preparing to rise. To be continued in Part 2.